Dave here, giving you a live look at the new Tutor models, the Snowbirds and Golden Centenaires. I don't speak French, sorry. And their clear plastic vacuformed canopies. Got a request on the forum for information on how I do my Vacuform Canopy. This is a new thing for me. I have tried in the past with various types of plastic. No great success. I think one of my biggest problems is making the form. I've experimented with different modeling clays, Sculpey. I just recently acquired this Vacuform box machine, whatever it's called, made by one of our forum members, Kurt. I'm just getting used to it. This, of course, is the frame to attach a sheet of plastic into. That's one of my problems, is coming up with the right plastic. The box itself is just a wooden box with a seal around the edge. You can see some tape on the top because I found the outer row of holes to be unnecessary, and by taping them up it gave me a little more suction in the middle. I'm just running a small mini shop vac. I'm heating my plastic with a professional heat gun. Trust me, it gets hot enough to burn through anything. But the only problem with the heat gun is that you're heating a small area, so you have to move it around, keep it moving. So as I said, one of my problems is coming up with plastic sheeting. I've tried a few different things, some too thick. It's hard to get it heated up enough, heated evenly so that the vacuum will pull it down. And if the sheet is too thin, I can form a good canopy, but it's flimsy, it's weak. It doesn't want to hold its shape very well, and of course you've got the problem with thin plastic melting very quickly. I came across these page protectors that have a thicker sheet on one side and a really thin sheet on the other side. They're heat welded together. I just cut them apart, and I experimented with both sheets, and I found the thicker side to be just about what I needed. I've already had some pretty good success making a couple of canopies, so I'm going to do one right here, right now, just to show you how I run through it, and we'll see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim off the edges of the plastic and separate the two sheets. And as I said, I'm just going to use the rear thicker plastic sheet. I'm going to put the thin one aside, and we'll put that one in the frame. Now the way this machine works in the frame here is just some wing nuts hold two halves together. So we take one off, and we want to position our piece of plastic. In this case, plastic isn't quite wide enough to go across the frame, but it's plenty long this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a hole in there and put the plastic right over the bolt, and then I'm going to pop a hole in the other side. Hopefully I got that in the right spot. There we go. And that stretches it pretty tight right there. And then once we get this back on, I've already found that you don't need to put in all 8. So the first thing we need to do is get our vacuum connected up here. And I just push that straight in there. That's already plugged in, ready to go. So the next thing to do is to bring our plug-in that I'm going to use here. This is the one I've made for the Tutor oven-baked Sculpey. And then I just trimmed off some of the shape as I wanted it, sanded it as smooth as I could, and I've also scored a little bit of a line in here. I have to redo this because it's not completely accurate, but it's basically the edges of the paper canopy that I had used to form this. I wanted a reference line that might transfer into the plastic. It doesn't, but I can use this to transfer it with a marker. And then it's raised ever so slightly with a piece of foam core because you need a little bit of room underneath for the plastic to suck in as much as possible to get a good tight mold on the sides. So the next thing I do is get that situated right there, and now I got to heat up the plastic to put the frame on. And I've done this two ways. I've brought my heat gun in and just heated the plastic and then put it on top, but I found it just as easy to position the frame right on there. And it's going to get noisy here in a moment. I'm going to turn the heat gun on and just start heating it. And once the plastic softens, the frame will sag down and start to form over the plug, and that's when I'll turn the vacuum on and then stop the heat at that time. So here we go. I moved the camera for a better angle to give me a little bit of room. I'll stop talking now and let's see what happens. I've got my heat gun on full heat, and I'm just going to start heating the plastic and try not to move the frame around too much so it stays there. It goes. You can see it softened up enough that it dropped down onto the box. Now I'm just going to keep heating, and I'm going to keep the heat gun moving. I don't want to burn through. I'm going to try to soften it until that frame falls all the way down. Kind of stop moving it there. And you've also got to watch, not only does it soften and the plastic stretches, but the plastic also shrinks wherever it's not being held. So if you watch the sides that aren't in the frame, they're going to start to buckle inwards a bit. I've got to be careful that I don't overheat it too much. I think we're just about there. It's pretty soft. It's going down pretty good. I'm going to hit the vacuum here. So once we have the plastic out of the frame, we can remove the plug from the plastic, but in this case what I do is, using a Sharpie, I mark the edge of the canopy that I'm going to cut out. You don't have to be too accurate because you're going to be trimming the shape of this afterwards. And then it's a case of popping out the plug from the formed plastic. Some of them come out real easily, some of them are a little tighter depending on how the plastic is sucked around. This is a different canopy sheet than the one I just made. I'm kind of fooling you here because I had a bit of trouble getting that one out of the mold, but this shows you how it's done. Now it's just a case of cutting out the canopy. I trim it down to something smaller than I can handle. Then I'll take it over to my workbench and I'll use my small scissors, and I will just carefully cut out that canopy, and then I will just cut out the regular paper canopy that comes in the kit. In this case I've supplied an extra one that is already connected at the front here. You can separate them if you want. I like to apply it in one piece. You just need to cut out the window sections, and then I use double-sided tape, a very thin roll of double-sided tape that I got from the scrapbooking craft section at one of the local surplus stores, and I apply some thin strips of that double-sided tape. It's a good idea to put a couple little reference marks so that you can line it up, because once that tape hits the plastic it tends to grab pretty quick, and stick the paper frame right to the canopy. I use the double-sided tape because CA glue will just fog the plastic, and I've had no luck at all with PVA glues, white glues, craft glues sticking to plastic. So the double-sided tape works well for me. And then it's just a case of fitting the entire canopy to the model. And you can use double-sided tape or glue to stick it down. And that's it. I hope you got something out of that. As I said, I'm not the best at making these canopies. I'm still learning. This is the most success I've had so far. I think, as I said, my biggest issue is making a good plug. That's it. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.